Is this last baby's photo, or did he live a full life? Let's go find out. I found these pictures at an auction. A collection of forgotten moments, beautiful, but also a little bit sad. When I found this picture, I was worried this might be the last memory of a life that ended way too soon. I found this little picture at an auction. Most of the time, these are the last moments that the family has with their loved ones with pictures like this. It also had this picture in with a group. And I know that if I don't buy these at local auction, I know that they will probably end up in the trash. There's something very captivating to me about old photos. They're little moments in time. And they hold little stories I can only guess at, but hopefully find who these are. Who knows, maybe we can pass these on to their relatives. But I think their relatives might have sold these unless it was just an auction lot that somebody was getting rid of. I am not sure. But these did come from an auction where a lot of estate sale stuff is sold. It's like somebody's past just kind of laid out on the table. These photos were in a bag, and I just had to buy them. It was only a couple dollars, and I got these two, which I thought was the same baby. These two adorable three little children, three little girls. And honestly, this was the big reason I bought them. I have three little girls myself, and I thought I wouldn't want those memories just going out the door in the trash. And having three girls myself, I just had to save these sweet little pictures. So I started with these two, just because it's a mystery. I was hoping to find that the sweet little baby was still alive somewhere, and that was where the story started, in the back. So now the clues that you can start with are the fronts. Look at the timetables, and then look at the back, or sometimes even in the front. If you can see here, the front will show where it came from, and here's the back that shows. And sometimes they would order extra copies. So they're very, very faded moments in time. And this is where I started. I could hardly read it. It says Walter Skipple, 1 year old. So I was pretty sure that this poor little baby's post-mortem picture. I want to dive in now and see what we can find. Is this last baby's photo, or did he live a full life? Let's go find out. Now, I am a huge history buff. Can you believe that? If my history teacher is watching back from high school, can you possibly believe that? Oh my goodness. I have to say, my history buff probably started with my grandmother when she was, when she'd show me all those old photos, and I always wondered, who are they? What stories did they have to tell? And every time I went to my grandma's house, I asked her, tell me the story again. Tell me about this one. Tell me about that one. And she was a vast knowledge of history because my great grandparents were her parents. So that's where my history buff started. Are you a history buff? So I'm trying this microphone on my shirt. Hopefully this works good. I might have to buy a better camera and not shoot this on my iPhone anymore. Okay, I'm going to show you my detective work because guess what? I did find Walter Skipple. And it's not what you think. It's not what you think. Because here's where it gets really kind of dicey, right? He didn't go by Walter. He did not go by Walter. He went by a different name. So the Walter that was on here is not how I had to research. And if you do a lot of genealogy, you'll learn to kind of search by sound X. And sound X is a great way to find people. Just kind of, sound out things. Oh, well, this person might be this, and you can find a lot more documents usually. Things, a lot of times people couldn't read or write. So just remember that as you're going along. Also, we are looking for Skipples. Okay, we're looking for Skipples. This looks like the turn of the century, and I'm gonna guess here maybe 1880s, 1890s. I'm looking in that time frame. maybe the turn of the century, but I don't even think it got that far. So looking at this is like really old furniture. The way they have it displayed, probably before the 20s. The back of this one says souvenir, so there is no help on this one. This one says Walter Skipple, 1 year, the Hanson New Art Studio. It gives an address in Chicago. Okay, that's a brilliant clue. We have Skipple and we have Chicago. So let's go find some records. You can use Ancestry or Family Search are really great tools. I do use them both. Most of the things are now being put onto Ancestry from Family Search, but there are still documents and photographs that you can look at. And I like to look at the real documents because sometimes they'll pull names and not necessarily the real what you're looking for on there. So I'm just gonna guess, and I'm gonna put around 1880, 1890 in the search, Chicago, Illinois. I'm gonna put Skipple in the word search and Walter. Now keep your eye out for people that don't even say Walter in that time frame, like late 1800s. We're gonna look there and see if we can find other people that aren't even named Walter. Going by the husband's name is usually the best because a lot of things were not in the women's name. Women kind of, ran the homes back then, and men tend to do more things or were on documents more. So we're going to specifically look for the husband's name if we can find that.
Okay, so here I found the 1910 census, the US Census, and I'm seeing this Thurgis Skipple. And I'm just going to go down here and look because I'm looking for the last names with some names with Walter or Vivian and Evelyn. And as we look down here, I can see these two, but we still haven't found Walter. I do see a Siegel W. So, sometimes they don't call them by their name. They named them, if that makes sense. Let's go dive into some more records. I'm going to pull up Family Search right here. And I've already looked into this, and here is a Siegel Walter Skipple. Okay, so we've got that name. So this is what you do. You're going to check the birthday, 1899. There it is here. Okay, now if you go back here, Siegel Walter Skipple was 10. Let's go back up. This is the 1910. So he was born around 1900. So this does make this the correct name. We have found Walter. Okay, the easiest way to start looking into this history is to create a family tree on Ancestry. So if you go create a family tree, start a new tree, and start adding in the people, and this will give you leaves to research new things.
Okay, so I've pulled into Ancestry and I'm pulled into Family Search to see what we can find if there's anything in that time frame with the last name of Skipple. Now there were quite a few people. I did narrow it down to Chicago, which is what you want to do. You want to find like the area they came from. That makes it a lot easier. And as you know, on these cards, especially this one where we're looking for this baby, it has the word Chicago on it. So Chicago, Illinois is where we are looking. They didn't usually travel out of their area very much. And if they did, they probably stayed there for a while. So we know that we're looking for Chicago, Illinois. First, I started with Family Search. I do kind of try to look at Family Search first. They tend to have a lot of really good records. And I came across a Siegel W. Skipple. Now, could this be our sweet, precious little baby here in this photo? It could be. It could be Siegel W. Sometimes, for whatever reason, I've known of parents to maybe change their mind and use the middle name instead. So this could be. However, when I pulled up the records of the father, which is great to try to find the parents, because it's going to give you a bunch of names to go off of. Guess what I found? Oh my goodness, it's like a jackpot. We have the names on the back of this card. We have Vivian Gladys and we have Evelyn on the back. And as we can see here on this record, we have a Evelyn and a Vivian. So we know this is actually all the same family. Oh my goodness. We are lucky today. We have found all these people. So I'm going to give you a little backdrop of what happened here. So this is the baby of Thorgus and Anna Skipple. Now Thorgus has come from Norway and traveled into Chicago area where he was staying, and Anna was kind of from this area. And quickly I found that they had 7 children. They had an Urban, a Ralph, a Myrtle, Siegel, Walter, which is the Walter we are looking for, Evelyn, Vivian, and Gladys. Now Gladys is the baby in this picture. So we have the last 3 children, which I thought was interesting. So Thorgus Skipple was born in September 1863 in Norway, and he married Anna on January 14 of 93 in Chicago, Illinois. Wow, that is great. Okay, so he was born in Norway. He arrived in 1985 here in the US in Chicago. He was naturalized in 1892 in Chicago, Illinois, and you know, Tommy's got to help us. He's got to help us every time. He loves his mommy. Then they had Irvin. Now Irvin is spelled several different ways in the documents, so you just kind of have to go by Soundex. In 1894. Then they had a daughter, Myrtle. And then we come into Siegel Walter, which is the Walter we're looking for. Super happy we found him. And they were living in Chicago, Illinois, and he was a chair maker. So he was probably working in a furniture factory in Chicago. Evelyn Skipple came along, and then Vivian. And then we come across the 1910 census. Now censuses are really important genealogy history because they show who is in that household, where they lived at the time, what they did for an occupation, sometimes how much they made or how much their house is worth. There's a lot of information that goes on in these censuses, which is definitely key to research. Sometimes you'll even find family members that you didn't know existed in these census records. And sometimes you can find that these people will move around or move in with a family member later on in life. And then we have Gladys Skipple that has come along. In 1920, 10 years later, we come across a census where he is an assembler. So he could be making some kind of wood product or still making chairs at the time. In 1930 comes along. He is still a chair maker, living in Chicago. And unfortunately in 1931, his wife passes away. Anna dies in Chicago, Illinois. And then his daughter dies in 1940. Thorgus was still alive here at this time, and she was just over 40 years old when she passed away. Okay, and in 1940, Myrtle is still alive here when they did the census, and he's living with his daughter Myrtle and her husband and their children. And their children are about teenage years, and he was 76 years old. And then in 1949, a few years later, he passes away. Now, so he will not be found in the 1950 census, of course. He died the year earlier, and he is buried over in Cook County. Now, if you are on Ancestry, there will be a link that you can easily follow, which is great, that will take you to find a grave. Otherwise, if you don't see a link or you don't have Ancestry, you can go over to Find a Grave and just do a simple search. I would suggest doing the last name and not the first name, because sometimes, like as in here, they're going by Thor when his name was Thorgus. And I'm not sure why Thor is in there, but maybe that's what the son-in-law called him. Maybe he went by Thor to his son-in-law and not Thorgus every day. So those records could be a little bit different for the person that entered this in there. And here it says, a Thor Skipple, a male, 1863 to 1949, and he is in Irving Park Cemetery in Chicago, Illinois. And the nice thing is on this too, that sometimes you can link like the family members, the wife or the children, which is nice. So it's another piece of valuable information. And then you can go to that cemetery too and look at their graves and see where their final resting place is. Now, I did request a photo from Find a Grave. People like me will go out into local areas and try to find the picture, but nobody has done it yet. So there might be a picture in the future, and I will be attaching these photos to the Find a Grave so other family members can have these too. I want to share as much as I can, and I think that's what is really great about genealogy, is sharing with others, sharing your information, because if you do not share, all those memories and things that you have dug up will be gone. When you are gone, it will be gone. So I think it's really important to share these pieces of information that you find. Okay, well, let's get to this sweet little baby that we found in this picture. Seagull Walter Skipple. And I'm so happy that he has lived past 1 year old. I was extremely worried, but he lived from 1899 to 1968. And the cool thing is he died in St. Petersburg, Florida. Oh my goodness, if that's the way to go, right? Living in paradise, probably, in a nice area. So let's dive in and see a little bit of history about Walter, since we were digging for Walter and we have finally found him. Now, the neat thing is the LDS community has posted a lot of things and gathered a lot of information to be able to find a lot of different sources here that Ancestry pulls up. So he was less than a year old, a couple weeks old, when he was baptized in the U.S. Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. And some of these records can be really hard to read, especially if it's still in their native language, like Norway, like Norwegian or Dutch or German or anything like that. Some of these records will be really hard to read, and they are very old. So he was 14 years old when he had confirmation. He was 32 when his mother passed away. He was married to a Hildur Skipple, and they did have children. So I don't want to go too much into that, because now we're getting more into the people that could still be alive, or, that's just kind of weird, right? So we're not going to dive too much into that tree, but we know that Walter did live past 1. He got married and he had children. I mean, I think Walter is living his best life. And then we can see here from the U.S. Marine Corps, there are muster rolls, which is a category of names and things they did. And our Seagull Walter Skipple was a messman, and he was in Company B, the 11th Regiment of the U.S. Marines. So we can thank Walter for his service in the military. Very nice. And then he had moved to Florida, and he had passed away about 1.5 years later after moving to Florida. So it sounds like Walter enjoyed some really, really nice weather. And he died on Treasure Island. I mean, who wouldn't want to die on Treasure Island, right? Seagull W. Skipple died Monday, a native of Chicago, Illinois. He came here 1.5 years ago from there. Survivors include a daughter, Mrs. Barbara, and she is from Western Springs, Illinois. So if you wanted to do like family search, you could start there and keep going, but we're not going to keep going there. As we move on to this picture, now Evelyn is our oldest daughter here in these photographs. And it looks like she lived a nice, happy life. She lived from 1907 to 2000, so about 95 years old, a little bit less there. So that was great to see that Evelyn lived a good life and was married. Now, our Vivian, however, she passed away in 1979. So about 70 years old. So that's not too bad. However, our Vivian never got married. She never ever married. And she lived with her family for most of her life. And in 1940, when she was about 30 years old, we see here that she's not working, but she's living as a lodger with some other people. And this is still in Cook County, Chicago, Illinois. And oddly, there isn't a lot of information. You would think that if she's a lodger, I would think she would be like a maid or a cook for a family or something. A lot of times they would live with a family and do something else or be a seamstress out of the house or something. But we don't see anything here, so I thought that was a little bit odd. So let's move on to the 1950 census. Now this is where Vivian's story takes a little bit of a sad turn, I think. And I think she probably didn't have any money. She wasn't working. So she went to live in a mental institution. Now that doesn't always mean that she had a mental problem or anything like that. Sometimes those places, the sanitariums, were also used for the people that were poor. And I didn't think she probably had any money if she wasn't working or living with family. So I'm not going to say that she, had like a mental problem. It's just she was not working, and now we see her living in a sanitarium. So sometimes these places also just held people that just didn't have any money, and this is the Manteno State Hospital for Psychiatric Facility in Illinois, operated from 1930 until it closed in 1985. And when it closed, at its peak, the population was almost 8,100 people living in this one facility, if you can imagine. And a lot of times they had gardens that they would take care of or do different things. Now, diving in deeper, when you dive in deeper into this place, you can see that there was a problem for overcrowding. So poor Vivian didn't, I think, have the best of life in the end of her life. So there was almost 30 years where she lived here, and I don't know if she ever got out of there or not. It led to overcrowding and a decline in quality of care. The rooms were in rows and beds of unsanitary conditions. Some former patients claiming they were routinely subject to lobotomies and electroshock treatments. So this took a turn that we don't necessarily want to see, but this is what happened to our poor Vivian. Now today, and it is now a veterans home, is what they use that place for. Boy, oh boy. So that wasn't quite what we expected. I would have thought like all the girls would get married and have children and live a happy life, but not always is that the case. And she was also buried in Irving Cemetery. Now here we move on to Gladys. She lived from 1912 to 1976, so she lived a nice life also and grew up to be an adult, so that is good. She married an Andrew Vingy and they had children together. And she kind of stayed in that same area and didn't really move on either. So she lived on and had a nice family. So that's our story that we put together on these 4 precious little photographs that I found just from an auction. It's always nice to save these little pieces of history and pass these little memories along. I hope you enjoyed my find. If you're passing by photographs like this and you see they have a name on them, pick them up. You never know what you'll find. You'll never know what kind of story you'll find hidden in these pictures. So this story is definitely teaching us how not to assume about pictures. definitely dive into the history and the documents of things to learn a story. Don't let your own fears get stuck in the way of maybe this isn't a baby who lived very long. Definitely look to see, did they still live? I see a lot of post-mortem pictures online shared and everything, and I have come across them myself. However, they could just be sleeping. To me, that's such an important, amazing find. I'm so thrilled and so happy. I'm happy that these pictures are not the last chapter to tell. We can share their memories along to others and find their story, the true one, the documented one. Have you ever found a picture like this and wondered who they were? A story that you just had to know? Let me know in the comments. And if you have pictures that you would like me to dive into, if you don't need them back, feel free to send them to me. I'll see what I can do. If they have some kind of name on the back, I might be able to find them. I'm pretty good at doing some research. I've been doing this for over 14 years now, and I absolutely love it. It is my passion. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this kind of content, to learn more about other people that I might find and come across. And if you see me in a thrift store or an antique store, stop and say hi. I would love to say hi to you. You might just find me out and about in your area looking for stuff like this. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Bye.